We have a range of things. I'm sure people will piddle in. We have a range of things to go over. The purpose was largely to introduce you to the fact that Marlene doesn't know how to put her cell phone down. And same with Guadalupe. And Blizzard is really, she knows this. Marlene really knows that this, I'm a really stickler for this kind of thing. You're laughing. I was known to eat some. Why do you think Jose doesn't even have one? Sore stomach for a week. Next, I liked it when the phones were smaller. They would go down easier. Okay, so the idea is to introduce you to the content of the courses. I mean, how many times do you sign up for a course and you show up first day of class, and there it is, the syllabus. It's like, yeah, I mean, the idea is right now to get you started, so you should understand what's in front of you, how the courses are interconnected to each other, how they're connected to the field trips, right? How they're connected to Arduino, how they're connected with the welcome aboard. Welcome aboard, my friend. Brownie, I used to shoot. Both. Yeah. No, polar bear, LTV. And to show how they're basically connected to this holistic approach that your faculty have developed through the semester. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with studio? Do you want to start with a sketching workshop, in which case I put my wife on board. She can start talking about that, maybe. Or do you want to start with a lecture class? Lecture class today. Jim, can I impose upon you, my friend? Somehow this one didn't. Yeah, just distribute. Okay, so essentially your reading is going to be done before you even get there, most of it. Okay? And again, the purpose of that is so that you don't spend time there reading when you should be out hanging out in the city sketching, right? Talking to some Italians, exploring things, places you haven't been before, and also working in the studio project. So this is actually quite important to separate these. The books that we're reading for this class include Timeless Cities, which is the only book. Jim's purposely missing you guys, by the way. I don't know whether there's a thing there. No, I'm sure.
Meredith?
No. Meredith. Meredith is the only book that you're required to buy. Because Blizzard is nice enough to spend a lot of time, but no, it's just easier to put books in PDFs and put them into your file, and we'll put them on OneDrive.
Weight in your luggage is going to be
The weight is critical, but also they're out of print. Okay, so for 30 of you guys to find a book which is normally sells for around $11, $12, and only 4 of you can find one is a problem. So it was much easier for me to take them and put them on PDFs. There's some ethical issues there with 2 of them. If you have a problem with it, please talk to me and I'll explain why I'm doing it this way, because they're just not available. There's no other way to get them to you. Timeless Cities, however, is required. We had the great fortune a few years ago to have Mayor Nick here for a lecture. And so he came for a lecture, and the students got to go out for dinner with him. I got my book signed. Right? So that's kind of cool. I think it's an important book because it presents the interconnectedness of urban structure with culture and narrative. So that each city we visit, Rome, Florence and Siena, Venice, all of them are so very, very, very different from each other. They're structured differently from each other. They have a different culture, they have a different history, they have a different urban form. This book goes a long way in presenting those different narratives, which are so connected with urban form. So on one hand, you have the shape of the city that we see it. you have the historical events that led up to it being the way it is now, and you have the ineffable culture which is inherently a part of that structure. Okay? That's what this book is about. It's a fairly easy read. It is, I think, one of the more enjoyable reads of the semester. Gordon Cullen is not an enjoyable read. Okay, Gordon Cullen is like if you picked up kind of a glossary of words that have to do with the urban structure, right? A glossary of conditions that you find when you're encountering the city. Spatial conditions, material conditions. He has several pages that just look at the floor patterns, okay, of the city, of streets and piazzas. So by itself, it's not a great read. However, your assignments are based, when we're over there, are based on these two books. My recommendation is actually to print out a copy of this when I get it up in one time. Print out. In fact, I think it's already up there. But print out a whole copy of it. This is not available. All right? Actually, it is. It's like $45. I stole it. No, I didn't steal it. Okay, so we're going to be using it as a guide for encountering these cities that we visit. Both of these. A friend of Gordon Cullen, whose pen name, whose pen name is Ivor de Wolf. It's not his actual name. But Ivor de Wolf produced this volume, which is very poorly written. And the purpose of it, again, is not to fuss over all of the content of the writing. In fact, I only gave you a small selection from it. They're mainly photographs, and they show you an encounter with Gordon Cullen as a filter, like a pair of glasses. An encounter not with an English city, but with an Italian city, or Italian cities. And so in here are the same cities that we're going to visit as well. Photographs. And so it also gives us a model for analysis. Together, these two books allow us to analyze the urban fabric. I might mention that when I was your age, a little younger than you probably, one of my major professors had this book, and not this very one, and I fell in love with it. And basically in 2004, when we went to Italy with our children for the first time, I chose places to visit based on this book. She doesn't even know that. And I mean, I had to go to Perugia, which was another issue. Perugia was very hard. But it's amazing how these images of the urban fabric, especially urban fabric that's not abstract, but one that we encounter directly through our bodies and through movement through space. It's amazing how the powerful nature of those images of Italian urban form stays with you. And so these become tools for analysis. And the reason I'm saying that is your work in the studio is going to be connected to these books as well. This one's been out of print. It's 1958. I mean, this stuff is old.
Yeah, I was just...
It's like, it smells pretty good. Mine's falling apart because why? Because I scanned it in for you, and the binding fell apart. It is still the best book on the morphological change of the city from its initial structure within the Greek world into the Italian organization of urban space, and from there into quite a variety of medieval spaces, which kind of blossomed out of the Roman fabric that was left behind after the fall of Rome. Into the Renaissance and how the Renaissance completely changed urban space, and then Baroque, the Baroque city, and Baroque city planning, which was the first time we can actually talk. Baroque? Did I see you thumbs down the Baroque? No, Baroque is fantastic, but this is still the best book that looks at that historically. For all these years, we're still reaching back to 58, MIT Press, by the way, to find the best book on the development of the city. Why are we spending this much time talking about cities? Because we're going to be living in the city. You're going to be living in the city. We're going to be living like right outside the wall of the city. We're in the suburbs, right? That's where it comes from. But you guys are living in the city, and we're visiting cities. Most of your experience of Italy, Europe for that matter, is going to have to do with the urban structure, your encounter with the urban fabric, the streetscape, the piazzas, the public fairs and events, the cafes which spill out onto the streets. Even in winter, you'll find people bundled up sitting there on the streets, having their aperitivo at 4 or 5 in the afternoon. So this is probably the best book on the history. These other books deal with analysis, not history. I thought about forcing you to buy this. I like John McKean. This is by an author, John McKean. 2 years ago, John McKean visited Urbino on my request and hung out there for a couple of days with the students. He is probably the most knowledgeable person in the English language on the work of Giancarlo Di Carlo. Okay? In the same room was Antonio Toasi and Monica Mazzolani, who worked with Giancarlo Di Carlo and continue his firm. Also in the room was Mark Lazar, who's been studying, and my scholarly work for the last 6 or 7 years has been on the work of Giancarlo Di Carlo. And I felt this small, and you're just like looking up at these guys. It's not just because I'm really short, but you're looking up at these guys. It was a remarkable experience for the students. I'm going to contact John again, and if he's in Italy, I'm going to find a way to bring him in to talk to you guys. Last time he was in Italy, so that worked out very well. But he's written this remarkable book. It's not a coffee table book, although it does seem big like a coffee table book. It actually gets into the process, the design process, by which Di Carlo is able to approach the site as a critical component of the eventual design of the building. So the site is never something that you build on and that you forget about. It's something that's incorporated into your experience. Why? Because he's learning from the city. He's studying the Italian city. He's studying specifically Urbino. He's walked the same streets that you've walked. He's built probably about 30 different buildings in Urbino. Depends on how many you want to count. I mean, in some of those dormitories, you can say, oh, that's another building, right? And his work is going to be everywhere. So I think that knowing something about it and understanding the importance of his work to late 20th century thought is one thing, but to be able to live and inhabit these buildings is quite another. So those are the main books you're going to be reading. There may be a few other smaller PDF files that we put in there periodically as we get closer to the end of this semester. Buddy Mayer had some desire to consider some other readings as well, and I haven't heard whether or not they're going to go forward, in part because they're all out of print and cost $600. We'll see what happens with that. So these are the books that you read ahead of time. You prepare a set of notes, and in your culture and theory, you have at the very, very end, you have 2 pages on the Cornell method. Okay, I like the Cornell method. You have a template at the bottom of the page that you must follow. Okay, so all you do is you read these books. You take copious amounts of notes. Why? Because it's not just to read them, you want to understand them. Because if you understand them, we're going to hit the ground running over there. You'll be ready for the class. You'll be able to discuss your experiences immediately with our first field trip. So that's very, very important. So you follow the Cornell method with these books. You arrive, the very first day of class, you hand me your lecture notes. Your lecture notes are 40% of your grade. Done. Just like that. Okay? What we're doing is we're front-loading the class. It's not like the class is more demanding. We're going to front-load it. So we're taking most of the work that's required and we're moving it to the beginning of the semester. Now remember, you've got 2 weeks after classes start here before we're starting class over there. So if you have a problem with reading books from now until January 26th when you get on an airplane, just remember the alternative is to have 2 weeks of class right here and then get on the airplane.
I do remember it was rather unfortunate. Some people did not read in advance.
Oh, God.
And when we arrived, we had some lovely weather, and it was sunny, and it was a sunny weekend, and they were all inside reading. Several people were
Yes,
inside reading.
and it was the last sunny weather we had for a month.
For a month.
Yeah.
So you do want to get it done before.
You have to get it done. There's no such thing as an architect who's not a reader. It doesn't exist. Go flip burgers. You know, flip pizza. Pizza Bob. Now he was good. You don't know the new pizza guy at Terrazzo del Duca. Oh, he's good. He's got these moves. Oh, I want to emulate Pizza Bob.
He really should. He should be in a video.
Yeah, he's good. He's good. Okay. The way the class works when we're over there is we're splitting the lecture into different parts. The theoretical component is delivered primarily by me. So I deliver the more history theory. We have some prep courses to do. So prep lectures to do. Every time we take a field trip, you'll have a prep lecture on where we're going. So you'll have background, you'll know what we're going to be sketching, why we're going to be visiting it, why we're sketching the way we are. And then there's another series of lectures which have to do with things we just need to know. We just need to know photography. Luckily, Jim is going, and Jim can talk about things like photography very well. And so he can begin to introduce you to some techniques or some approaches which can assist you with your photography. And I think that will be very helpful given that that will feed directly into the projects you're doing, which, by the way, involve these two guys who are close friends. So they're right next to each other. The whole city, the whole townscape movement is started by that. Then we also have, my wife is going to be helping us with the lectures, some of the prep lectures as well. So it's going to, we collaborate as a team, work as a team. When Buddy shows up, he has proposed a couple very interesting possibilities, perhaps a lecture on Scarpa or Palladio, both of which are architects that he admires a lot. We're going to be visiting their buildings, so that makes sense. We're going to be visiting them in the second half of the semester.
As well as he wants to introduce some Italian culture.
Yes.
To including opera and
Cinema. So those kinds of lectures are coming towards the end of the semester, and they don't have the heavy theoretical content that we have up front. Why? Because we're front-loading the required work. Anything else you want to say about that, Jim? I don't want to keep going. If you had some thoughts or wanted to mention a few aspects. We have our schedule here, our tentative schedule for lectures. And you can see who's lecturing and what the subject basically is. Subject doesn't change. It's on page 3.
I'll break in.
What?
I'll jump in.
Jump in.
Have something.
Okay, yeah. So the class is divided, as I said, into your notes. There's a couple of things to go over here. There are these things called transects, and they're assignments. And you'll be doing one, conducting them when we're on these extended field trips. They will save time. You'll have a half a day. You'll be conducting this transect. And that transect, or some variation of it, will provide you with a drawn product or some sort of series of field notes that you take along with photographs, and then you put that together and you have a little board that you present afterwards. And so each of those is 10% of the grade. So they're kind of part of your experience anyway. So in a way, it's not separate from what you'd be doing in the city, which is walking around, exploring things, discovering things, except that I say you're using language and understanding that comes from, I like these two guys. I think they figured it out? I think they figured it out. We're working on it. We're working on it. Moving on. There will be some suggested readings also in the OneDrive. The suggested readings are above and beyond these readings, and if you do them, you get extra credit. Okay? But you have to have done these first. I don't count any extra credit until you've done all of these readings. And I don't mean like tickle the back of your throat and had a cathartic experience. That's the origin of the word catharsis, by the way. Did you know that? It's very interesting. We read it, we see it in the Greek, in the Bible, and we wonder what it means. It means you tickle the back of your throat and stuff comes out.
Catharsis.
Catharsis, I know. It's spelled with a K originally. Okay. This is the only schedule you have. So I didn't put schedules in the other syllabi. This is it. Every one of the classes is coordinated, at least as far as the three of us are concerned. Buddy's not here to vouch for his coordination. But the notion is that these classes support each other. They don't conflict with each other. You know how it is. You have an exam, and all of a sudden you have an exam in 2 classes on the same day, and your teacher says, it's life. Well, we don't do that, right? We have a different way of working there, which is, again, we're teaching one class. It happens to be broken into different components, a studio component, a lecture component, a drawing component. But just think of it as one class. The other thing that's important as far as that is concerned is that the classes all feed into each other and support each other. Okay? So what we're learning in drawing class is going to enable us to better understand the urban fabric of the next place we visit. Okay, so there's this interrelationship there between us, which means that your faculty are having a dialogue like all the time. Right? Because we're constantly learning from what you guys are doing in studio and in drawing class, etc. What else is important about this thing? Oh, our schedule, I mentioned very briefly last time. Our schedule is class day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Imagine one of your most intense days you've had here. Now multiply it by 3. That's what your week is like. 3 super intense days. That's right. You've got to treat them seriously with intensity. Other professors in the past have decided to have class on Friday. We don't. There's no class on Friday. Why? Because when we're in the CC, we would love to have you guys stay in the CC. Or say, you know what? I'm partway to Rome. I'm heading to Rome. Right? So that when we go on a field trip on Thursday, some of you may say, well, I would like to stay an extra day or to continue my travels. And you'll have that option. Again, you'll be doing it with your sketchbook in hand, because sketchbook will be something that you'll have to do daily. You're daily working on the sketches, not 3 days a week, but 7 days a week. Aside from when you're in the shower or it's pouring rain outside.
Even in their sleep.
Actually, there's always students who put it right next to the bed, and then you have those recurring dreams, which are exciting sometimes. You want to sketch. That's what I do. No, I actually don't. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't have my sketchbook next to my bed. I have my fountain pens locked up. No, I don't. All right. that's about it from this. This is, what I'd like you guys to do, if you don't mind, is read this over carefully and email me your questions and I'll answer them for the group. The reason being is I want to make sure you understand things. Is there anyone who's not been able to get into the OneDrive? Did I put one thing in OneDrive and send? Is there anyone who's not been able to do it?
I had a little trouble opening the one you sent, but I don't think it's your fault.
I think it must be.
But someone else in the group forwarded it to me, and then I could open it fine.
Okay.
So I think that'll work out okay.
Well, I can just send me an email.
Okay.
And tell me that, and I'll make sure the email is linked up properly. Sometimes the colon is left off an end and it refuses to acknowledge you as an email recipient.
Thank you.
So I've done that before. I found out that the emails that the college have, many of them are wrong,
Well,
which was very interesting to find out. But I appreciate you guys who were here last week and you put your emails down because I was able to catch that.
so those would have been emailed that they gave us questions?
No, they're emails that somehow the college typed down when they were signed up for a study abroad in pay. It just means someone typed them in incorrectly. But we're solving that. If there's any of you who have not been getting emails or know someone who hasn't,
Find out now.
good to see you again. Glad to see you again. That's good. You have a morning studio, don't you?
Not doing.
Okay, but just like you hide. I understand. I do the same thing. Urban Studio. Let's do Urban Studio or Sketching? Sketching? Studio. Whatever Paul says. Studio. Right. What? While we're passing out the Urban Studio syllabus, I have a question for you with regard to Italian. Every year we have an Italian class over there, and in the past it's been taught by Roberta the Divine. This year, there's not enough time for her to teach it. Okay? So,
It's called a survival Italian
yeah,
class.
yes, you need to know how to order an
Yes,
aperitivo,
yes,
right? You need to be able to ask someone out for an aperitivo, right? You need to be able to tell them their hair is beautiful, right? These are very important things to learn in Italian, especially where the bathroom is. And,
So who didn't get that last syllabus?
oh.
Oh, that's an extra.
There's folks, I asked, oh wait, there's more here. Wait, there's more. Roxanne just mixed them up. All right, so the Italian class is going to be taught over there again, but it's going to be taught with someone from the university. They're over there already. And in the past, it's been around 25 euros a person. Last year, I happened to be able to fund it myself based on the amount of money that you guys already put into it. I have not seen the budget for this year. The euro right now is what? Tell me what the euro is in dollars. No? 115 today, huh? Not bad. We're sitting pretty, which means when we're over there, 1 euro, it was $1. Let's just purge your mind that it's $1.15. Just get rid of that, it's $1. In the past, I've been able to find 25 euros from the budget that I'm given. I obviously don't know what that is yet, but I do know if the money is there, I'm paying for it. Your responsibility is to commit to the class. There are 7 or 8 lectures, one a week. I think there's 7 of them, one a week, and it's going to run, if all of you do it, it's going to run 20, 25 euros. Okay? If some of you, for reasons which may be that you're already a fluent Italian, Maybe you already have an Italian boyfriend. That's fine, you know? Then you probably don't need Italian class. Wrong. You probably do. Otherwise, don't tell her she has a cute nose. Here's the thing. If some of you decide not to take it, the cost goes up. It will go up to 50 euros a piece,
Which is still not a lot of money.
which is not a lot of money.
Because you're talking about 7 or 8 classes.
It would be how many hundreds of dollars here? $300, $400 for an Italian class?
They also tend to be excellent teachers. They do this whole body thing where
They move the bar.
they don't use much English. They try to communicate with their hands. They will use images and things. I just found them to be excellent teachers.
Yeah.
Uh,
So the idea is that sometime before I go, I need you guys to tell me if you're in or out. And last year, everyone but one person said that they were in, and evidently there was a big rumble, and that person finally agreed to it. I wasn't involved in the rumble. It's not a big deal. It's very inexpensive, and I will supplement whatever money that you put into it, into the cash, into the big cash cow. I'll make sure you get back. And so I'm thinking that I probably ought to have at least 20, 25 euros apiece for each of you, but I don't know. Okay? As soon as I find out, which will be after Rome, so you already have to have committed yourself to the Italian class. By committing yourself, it means showing up. Not showing up to class is like slapping someone in the face, which isn't very pretty at all. Okay, the urban studio. Oh, one more thing. Yes?
At the top where it says the meeting times, what does it mean by Studio 1 and Studio 2?
Yeah, there are 2 studios.
Okay.
One studio is Lazard. Hopefully, with some help from my friend. No, because we don't get a chance to teach together here, and I think you'll find that our dynamic is, I don't know, it's interesting. Right? I mean, I enjoyed the opportunity to teach alongside her, with her, and she already is connected to how the whole program is developed as a whole, because it was developed collaboratively. It wasn't developed by me. Okay.
the other studio is?
The other studio is Dawes and Mayer.
Solo. Just me. It's not gonna help us.
No, you've got Buddy coming in.
The split happens at spring break.
Yeah, you're both
Okay.
Spring break.
Spring break.
Yeah, so they're Easter half.
So it's not we sign up for one or the other, it's just we're going to
No, there's Lazard is one, and the other one is Jim Dawes for the first half, and Buddy Mayer for the second half. Okay?
Why is it changed to
No.
So on the Studio 2, I'm confused about like how the timing works. It says 10:45 to 12:45.
Yeah, because there's 2 drawing classes.
Okay, so but then there's one. It says 4 to 6:30, but then
Yeah.
Studio 1 is from 2 to 6.
Exactly.
So
There's 2 studio spaces, but there's a drawing class. If you go back to the schedule that I handed out at one point, right? I changed it since then, so it doesn't matter. Go back to it. What it is that Professor Lazard wanted a separate drawing, 2 different drawing classes, not trying to lump them into one, but having 2 classes works much better. It also is, when we get to that, the way she teaches the class is that as a collaborator, I'm in there to assist her when she's teaching my studio. Okay? When she's teaching my studio,
No.
Jim is over in his class working with his studio, in studio class. Okay, and then she's done with my studio, they get kicked out, very ignobly, and then she teaches Jim's students. So it's a matter of trying to fit everything into a daily schedule, as opposed to here, where you have the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then the Tuesday, Thursday classes. We're doing everything Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So you'll have drawing and studio at the same time. By the way, Their contact hours have been worked out. You're getting, as required by state law, you're getting the same contact hours you would be getting if you were taking studios here. We're compressing it because we're missing 2 weeks up front, and we're missing at least a week out back behind it. Okay?
But that's why sometimes you actually end up having class on a Friday, or even, is there one on a Saturday when we go?
We're on this extended field trips. There's classes through Sunday morning. It's just-
Part of that is your actual contact hours for the sketching class might actually be happening on a Saturday or Friday.
Yeah, on the extended field trips.
Certainly
Good
contact
point.
hours on the,
But I'm serious about contact hours. I run into students who are in study abroad programs from Kansas State, from Texas A&M, and they have studio light, is what I call it. They get 6 credit hours and do about 3 credit hours worth of work. And you ask them, so what did you do in Italy? Their first reaction is like this: not on my watch. Not on my watch. You're here to get as much out of being there as possible, to engage the places, to draw them into your thinking, to develop mastery over your ability to analyze, to study, to get really into something, while you don't have all of the slings and arrows of other responsibilities around you. Like mowing the lawn. When I'm there, I don't mow the lawn. I don't have to mow the lawn. I got someone sitting in my house at home mowing the lawn. I'm not bothered by having to mow the lawn, right? So I can spend more time teaching.
there might be other times in your life that you get to do significant travel, but this is when you're traveling as a student, which should be fundamentally different than traveling as a tourist.
The other thing that's going to be perhaps different, the studio projects are going to be fairly similar, the book slide. And the analytical portion is going to be similar, right? The difference may be that Monica Mazzolani and Antonio Toasi are contracted to work with me. Last year they worked with both studios, but this is pending Buddy's interest, and I just haven't had time. He's been flooding out all the time up there. We haven't had time to sit down and really talk about what he would like to bring into the conversation when it comes to studio. But I do know that Monica and Antonio are working with my guys, and I'm hoping that he finds that agreeable as well, which I think is important. I think you'll love Monica and Antonio. Moving on. The main project we're doing is a market, and it's a market that connects the existing urban structure of Urbino, which is enclosed with a Renaissance wall. It connects, I miss my students, my former students, I miss them. It connects the historic center of Urbino with the suburban developments outside the city which have taken place since World War II. It's a market, which means it's essentially a piazza. And there's some enclosed spaces, some interior stuff, so it's not just an exterior project. But to prepare you for it, the books are related, as your experience, to studying these kinds of external environments. So I think you'll find that the understanding that you bring from Zucker, from DeWolf, from Mayernick, from Gordon Cullen will benefit you greatly. It will also give you an ability to talk to Monica. And if you guys don't want to talk to Monica, I will. Right? I mean, we got to stay in her house when we were in Milano and meet her husband, who's also an architect. And these people are probably models for what you will want to be when you're their age. Someone who's highly motivated, highly engaged in the arts communities, in the architectural developments within Milano especially, but Italy in general. People who are highly engaged in education and teaching, and yet also in practice. And I think that both of them are remarkable models, role models, and you'll want to be able to talk to them. The way you talk to them is you bring these books with you. So the first half is going to be analytical in nature. We're going to be studying Urbino. We'll be studying Urbino using these books primarily, and generating analytical presentations of the fabric of Urbino. We're going to be doing this both in groups and partly individually, but mostly in groups. And it really helps. I mean, in the past, there's been some really dynamic groups which have been able to make some amazing discoveries in a very short period of time. So much so that when Antonio saw their work, he just assumed that they were much more knowledgeable students and they were given a lot more time to do this. And he's someone who should know, coming from DeCarlo's office. So that's the Urban Studio. The next one is the Analytical Sketching Workshop. And I'm hoping that Professor Bouzard will discuss it.
Okay, so because the three courses all sort of work together and we are in communication with each other, we're probably eating dinner together almost every evening.
Jim is fun to eat with, and I'll tell you why. Because after dinner, we sketch.
Yeah.
We sketch. We sketch. Every project that Norma gives to you guys, guess who's doing it too? She gives it to us. I'm sure. We pretend that she doesn't, but she does.
So because of that coordination, we, I believe the term belonged to Professor Fish. There's the sketching boot camp in the first 2 weeks, probably. So the drawing will be,
Yes, 2 weeks.
there will be less studio and more drawing in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, drawing all
Like
day
drawing,
long.
drawing.
That's fine.
And-
Your hand becomes one with the pen.
The one thing about study abroad, which is probably, you will probably never have another time in your life where you can devote so much of your time to drawing. And if you've struggled with drawing in the past and you haven't enjoyed it, and maybe you took Design Viz and that was the last time you wanted to deal with a sketchbook, this is an opportunity like no other. I mean, literally people around you will be drawing every day. We will be drawing every day. Every one of us are drawing as well on the field trips. And even sometimes after the meals, people sit around and draw. With a coffee, people sit around and draw. And so we're going to have quite a bit of time dedicated to the sketching in the first 2 weeks, because we're trying to build up your skills quickly so you will have those as we travel throughout the semester. So, and we go to Rome fairly quickly, so we really want to get you started and you practice a lot. Please realize that it is, I mean, we might have some musicians in this group.
I hope so.
You know that.
Jazz musicians only, please don't admit it
If you-
didn't play folk.
I like folk. If you go to your class, your music class, say your piano class, you know you can't just go to piano class and that's it, and do nothing until the next piano class. Nothing, you will never improve. And it is the same thing with the sketching classes. Even if we are sketching a large portion of the day, or you've had 2 hours of sketching that day, or you've had 4 hours of sketching that day, you still have to practice on your own time to have that improvement. It's just impossible to think it's going to happen just in the class time without doing the work on your own as well. So whatever, we love to see everything in your sketchbook. We notes sometimes notes about cities, collage, thoughts about your travels there. It can be both a combination of sketching and sort of journal. I like to introduce some other media as well as the ink, like ink washes. I've been developing this new colored pencil ink wash combination. So some students like to collect also. There are some beautiful tickets sometimes when you go to museums that have pieces of art from their collection, and they'll integrate those into their sketchbooks. And so what happens if you do this, it doesn't really matter so much that you come with fantastic skills already. It's more that you come with a positive attitude, that you are going to be willing to give the time to this, and then I guarantee you will see tremendous improvement. So some people are going to come with more skills, some people are going to come with less skills, but everybody who devotes time to it improves significantly. And what's really wonderful, to this day, when I open up, we've been doing study abroad probably almost 6 trips. When I open up a page of my sketchbook, I have a very profound memory tied into each page of that sketchbook in the way that I don't with a photograph.
One time. Luca.
Yeah.
Luca, 2010, right? We're in Luca the first time. Luca's surrounded by a park. Why? Because Napoleon's sister said, when she was given Luca by Napoleon, I want a park.
Well, first it was a fortification.
So she takes the bastions and converts it to a park. And when we're there visiting, Norma says, I like a park. I'm going to walk along the park. And her husband says, park? I want to go into the city. And so we're up there like this. And then we break up. We break up for at least an hour. She walks along the park and I go into the city. And we meet up at this little cafe. And I didn't realize, like close to 6 o'clock, they were already starting to close, but she served us some tea. We had tea in the afternoon with lemon, and we're sitting across from this drop-dead, gorgeous Romanesque, late Romanesque Pisan Gothic church. I love it. And we're sketching it. Of course, I have a little sketch of her. And to this day, every time I open that page, I think, why did I argue with her? Why didn't I? Maybe I should have just walked along the wall. Because it's there, it's embedded, everything's embedded. I know who I was with, where I was with, the date I was there, what I was seeing, what I was thinking. If you start to realize that all of that disappears without the sketchbook, it's gone. How many days can you remember the whole day? The whole day. I can open up any page that I've been in Rome, or I can open up a sketchbook of someone who came to Rome with us and point to one day and they'll remember the whole day. 8 sketches. And it's just amazing how beautiful that is to be a part of, for us to be a part of that.
So it's
Luca,
not,
man.
it's
Why did
not
I do
just,
that?
there's really not much point in that your sketching imitates a photograph. And please don't ever sketch from a photograph. Either take the photograph or sketch it. Don't draw from the photograph. So we want you to sketch to develop skills to become better designers, so you can so you can convey your ideas quickly on a page in a simple manner. But
So they're analytical sketches.
they're analytical that way, but it's wonderful the way that sketchbook almost becomes a diary of your semester abroad too. And I think that when there have been students who have been reluctant to put any time in outside of class and they treat it more like a regular class, they don't end up with that beautiful memory that's held in that sketchbook. Whereas if you're willing to put the time in,
Giovanni's phone number's right in there. Well, you forget that. You didn't have your
So,
sketchbook. You forgot.
a lot of class time, front-ended at the beginning, sketching. We sometimes have to make a little bit of accommodation to good or bad weather. We'll, whether we can be outside or are forced to be inside. And then after that time period is over and you go more to your normal schedule of a smaller portion of the day devoted to more like a regular class time sketching, that you will always have those Thursdays when we travel, a portion of every one of the small trips as well as the extended trips.
3 hours.
3 hours of each of those trips are sketching time and considered part of your contact hours for the sketching class. So when you travel to these cities, it's we do walk around, tour, we talk, but something in each city will be devoted to sketching within that city.
You
And
can also sketch on the bus.
on the bus,
Yes.
It's some very interesting shaky
You know,
sketches.
yeah, exactly. You realize you don't have to drink as much coffee as I do. I bet you didn't think about that. To develop my shaky line, actually it's chemical induced from too much darkroom work, chemical darkroom work that I was involved in lingerie. But you don't need all that caffeine to get the shaky line. All you have to do is sit on the bus. And it's amazing. The bus draws for you. You end up with these beautiful sketches. You're like, how did I do that? I was like, well, you're on the bus. You weren't drawing that, Jim. The bus drew that. And it's just, yeah,
Collaborative.
it was collaborative. Jim does the absolute best bus sketching, because we're driving by and he'll see a building, boom, before you know it, it's right there. Wow, I missed that. And I'm looking at his sketch and he's already seen another one. It's like, whoa, I'm looking the wrong place. I should be looking out the window. And then sure enough, a Romanesque church will come moving by.
It's a game, it's kind of fun, because all of these little farm buildings and houses and little towers that you're passing on the hills, but you don't get to see them very long, so the sketch is a chance to go tall, pointed top, 3 windows down this side, nothing on this side, there's another one, then you go another one.
I
Little-
did
quick
a
little
similar,
fill-ups.
almost the same game, just in my case, I was looking at the structure of different kinds of trees. Because there are trees which are conical, there are trees which are like umbrellas,
Yeah.
there are trees which are more upward facing branches, others have these drooping branches, and you would see multiple on the
all
bus.
these trees.
And you're
yes.
going past it 60 miles an hour, and you see one, and I would begin sketching, oh, it's the conical one. And then it would be out of view, but there was another one upcoming, so I kind of finished the sketch on the second or the third or the fourth tree of the same type as I go along. If you don't get car sick. So, only on the highways and the bus.
So this is done collaboratively too. We've got, we'll be helping in those classes. So we each bring different, and then also you don't have, you'll get tired of me, right? You know that after a class. I think so. And so all you do is you just convert, you just hang out with his group. There'll be opportunities for that kind of cross-fertilization. We're not putting you in towers.
Please feel like you can go to any one of us to talk about
Putting you in towers?
No towers, no
Man,
silos.
No silos, no
Any one
towers.
of us might
Basta.
come to you. Any one of us might come to you to talk about sketching when we're on one of these field trips, because it is really impossible for me to reach out to 38 people in a CC. So any one of us might come and
So we're all your
your
teachers.
sketching. The thing that
You're each other's teachers too. You'd be
we
surprised.
are asking to do well in the class, to have 100
Exceptional.
good pages in that sketchbook. And it's not one
That's-
sketchbook.
Like 3 sketchbooks.
I was wondering, yeah.
And
Yes.
so, those pages don't always have to be some beautiful rendering of something. They could also be a beautiful study of lines on one page, or a beautiful study
Beautiful
of
thumbnail bus sketches.
thumbnail bus sketches, ink wash studies, a collage where I took apart part of a postcard and reassembled it and interacted with it, and my lines are in dialogue with the postcard pieces. So they can be many different things, and I'm sure that many of you have talents you can bring to this, which can make each sketchbook sort of your own. And I think you'll really enjoy, that'll be a real lasting memory of this trip. So that does mean you have to put in the additional time to even get to that, close to that number. But I think it kind of becomes a joyful time for most people. And, okay,
For me, it does.
anything else?
It's a great class, fantastic class. I want to tell you. I have to admit that when I come back to San Antonio with my best intentions, I think I get one sketchbook filled from May until January.
Oh,
And when I'm in Italy, I get 5 filled in 3 months. And it's just it's a different world. I mean, it's, waking up in the morning when I was living in Rome and jogging by, I call it running, but because jogging's kind of like soft. Running by the Tempietto every day is like incredible. In the morning, I just check in to make sure it's still there. Like no one stole it. It's so small, and then you just want to pick it up and like put it in your coat and take it away. But it was always there, and it was just magical to see it every single morning, or most every single morning. And the same with Urbino. I think you'll find that Urbino itself is a magical, magical town. There are very few towns like it in all of Italy, in part because it's so well kept. It's got essentially Etruscan streets which are embedded in a Roman fabric, which has been absorbed by a medieval city, which has been converted into an ideal city of the Renaissance. The Baroque never quite hit it. I don't think it's...
We don't miss that.
Yeah, I do. But it's just, and plus then the remarkable new 20th century works by Giancarlo DeCaro. So I mean, there's so much there that it will be magical just to wake up and to see it again and to realize that, wow, I'm actually in Italy. I didn't think it would happen, but there you are. So those are our classes we're teaching. The project for the studio, as I said, is broken into the two sections. The analytical section, which has its own product, and then the synthesis, which is the design. Ideally, they flow directly into each other without any inconsistencies between them. And we'll hopefully be able to do that. I think that'll be worthwhile. There's a few things to help you. I'm going to put read a small, maybe 40 pages from a book called Visual Notes in the Dropbox, which is another one of those great books that's unavailable. It's been out of print for years. We got some of the last ones when we talked together about 4 years ago. But I'll put that, because I think what Professor Blizzard said about the idea of taking your sketchbook as a journal, as a visual way to take visual notes, a site for the visual notation, is really exemplified in this book. And it's not always the most beautiful sketches. You'll be amazed. There's 5 or 6 pages looking at Urbino. Someone went to Urbino and analyzed the town. And to be honest with you, the line work is atrocious, right? But they're still great pages. And I think that there's something in this book which should help you understand the notion of the sketch, not as an attempt to represent something, but an attempt to uncover something, to discover something. That's why it's analytical, as opposed to representational. The other thing, mention a few things. There was a problem a few years ago. Someone brought some visitors along. They showed up like in Rome. Don't do it. Don't tread on that ground. It's not going to work. Okay?
You certainly can meet with your guests over spring
Yes.
break, over spring break.
Well, when you have
if you're
off,
traveling.
but when you have on, these are time. So we're going to spend three and a half days in Rome. Trust me, 3 of those days.
They're
that's
academic,
classical.
they're
They're academic.
Yeah.
The whole day. Please don't try to meet friends and stuff during that time. It's not going to work. It's going to lead to disruption, and it's going to cost them a lot of money because they'll have shown up to see you, and they won't see you at all. Right?
And on that note, please recognize that the spring breaks are not the same.
Not the same.
So is that happening
Please.
again?
Yes. A week off.
That's political.
We argued against it, but we did it.
It's because Culfa needs the time to pass faculty back and forth. So I don't.
Complicated for them.
It's complicated, but I don't get it. The other thing about visitors is don't do it. Right?
And
Don't
that's-
bring your
don't-
special friend with you over to Urbino and expect them to hang out there while you work. Just don't. I've seen more pain than anything else from a few cases that happened. Once on my watch. I would not do that.
Have them meet you after the end of the semester.
Yes. At the end of the semester, you got a wonderful opportunity. You got a whole summer in front of you to travel. And travel. By that time, you realize that traveling can be done on the cheap.
Go to Paris and meet them at the top of that Eiffel Tower and get a
No.
proposal.
Meet them on the left bank. Meet them at a grungy underground cafe, Travis Cafe, on the left
We
bank.
did have a student who traveled afterwards and proposed to a girlfriend.
We always
We
have.
went to their wedding.
I would not want that from our trips.
It was after the semester was over.
Okay, the other couple things are, make sure you send me your flight itineraries as soon as you make them. I am required to collect them. I'm required to have every one of your flight itineraries before you get on an airplane. For 2 reasons. One, you're not going to have a place to stay when you arrive in Urbino unless you give me your flight itinerary. Okay? Because I immediately turn around and send them to Mirko Marinelli. So make sure you do. I will say, I apologize for having to send you a lot of emails, but you'll get lots of emails to remind you that as soon as you get your itinerary, to send it to me. Again, at the end of the semester, my recommendation is don't come running back home. Use a little bit of time, even if it's just a few days, on your own, decompress, visit Milan if you want to go to Milan again. Visit, Venice if you want to head to Venice at a time when there's less tourists.
Springtime and warm and flowers after an actual winter.
Puglia.
Thinking
I would go to
about the
Puglia.
last few
I'd go to
days
Puglia.
we had, there's quite a bit of weather like that, the last few days that we've had.
Yes,
here.
stunning.
No, I mean the last few days.
Oh, the cold is miserable.
And the rain. There are quite a few days like that. It's called spring semester, but it really is majority winter semester. So by the time the semester ends and it's springtime and it's beautiful and spring, you don't want to rush back here. You
Yeah,
want
you'll
to
be in
spend a
love.
little time there after everything's, all the work's over. You want to celebrate.
Spring break, please, don't rush into your plans for spring break. One, make sure you check your schedules, which I've given you, and understand that spring break doesn't start until 5 o'clock on the last day of the current form. The other reason is we're only going to touch Siena for a very brief period of time. And Siena is a stunningly wonderful city. And everyone wants, for some unknown reason, I gotta go to Dublin for spring break. I gotta go check up on my dead Irish relatives. I.e. visit the pubs. Which is great, it's great. But an extra day to go to Siena might be worth it, right? So be careful that you don't make plans based on the lack of knowledge, but make plans based on gut reactions, right?
Also, I
Gut
think
reactions won't give you the
Having
best decision.
if
you
you've been
can
there
make.
a while, you'll have a better idea how to find cheaper accommodations, how to travel, how to find less expensive
Who you want to
flights,
travel with.
Who you want to travel with, you'll make friends.
Jim and I
with.
traveled together, we did spring break together.
Great time.
We had a great time.
But,
I almost worked with you guys, it's terrible. Both days.
but I think you'll understand more about that after you've been there a while. And Roberta has actually helped people discover how to find cheaper flights and better accommodations, and students figure out how, you can rent, if I travel with 4 people, I can rent one of these Airbnbs for a week and bring down the cost tremendously from a hotel cost.
Don't plan on remaining a loner over there. You'll make new alliances and friendships and things, and I think that'll also be making different decisions about independent travel.
You also might choose to travel with,
Yes, couple people were fun. But when the musicians were there, I admit that I really enjoyed their presence as well.
Yes,
Will we have any overlapping field trip with Colfa students, or are we just
Yeah.
totally?
No, we have overlapping people.
if not every time we'll probably be on the bus.
But we're on the bus together, but we're not doing the same thing at all.
Yeah.
They're singing,
It's-
singing Hyde Park,
I think that
arrangements.
we're going this time, it's not music going this time, I believe it's medical humanities. Isn't that what it is? It's
They sing.
it's a new kind of concentration, it's a humanities degree with students who are also planning to go into the medical field, but it's not necessarily majoring in biology. So I think that we're going to direct them to some interesting things in Florence. I think that there's so much medical and history in Italy to explore too. So maybe, I've always wanted to.
Art history is good. I thought so, or something related to that. I'm not certain. I'll have to find out. But the Colfa people,
You guys have been isolated down here so
they
much.
provide
I
a really
think you'll
good
really
counterpoint.
enjoy having, making friends with people in other majors.
They've always sent very good faculty too. Almost always. Yeah, weigh your luggage. Don't be silly. Don't be silly. Don't walk into San Antonio Airport and find out that your bag is 10 pounds overweight.
It's like a $70 fine.
It's not a fine. You just pay, it's all $70, $80. don't do it, way worse. Any questions, any other questions, comments, thoughts? You want to know where the best pizza is in Urbino?
Oh, that's an ongoing.
That's an ongoing discussion. There's serious arguments about that. Do you like cheese?
Question back here.
Corazza del Duca.
Yeah, I don't know if this is like an everyone question, personal question. Our flight is like 4 of us, we'll be staying the night in Bologna.
Good.
On the way back, looking for recommendations for hotels.
Yeah, get them
Get
early.
them earlier.
Yeah.
Get them away from students. It is,
That sounds like, you might think, oh, you want to be in students. Oh my gosh.
No, God.
So loud.
no,
And it goes
this
on all night.
is not a good way to end the semester. It's a loud, obnoxious hot fest.
We'll get to you later. Okay.
It's not good, yeah. Anywhere that you're not close to the bus station or train station or the students. The old Jewish quarter is pretty bad because that's not a student quarter. Good food.
Only one night in Bologna before you come back to San Antonio.
Mine may or may not change. It was just cheaper to book the round trip and then pay to change the.
Oh, I like that.
Instead of trying to
Change
buy
both.
it one ways, it was cheaper just to buy the round trip.
You'll find 3 other friends that are just as good. Maybe. Maybe. I don't know. Okay. Anyway, as questions occur to you, send me them by email. I'm more, yes, real quick. How much?
Finally have out of all the class and traveling.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Every single week.
Well,
We have no class on Friday,
Yes.
no class on Saturday, no class on Sunday.
you have studio projects here that are sometimes over the weekend. You also will have studio projects there that are often over the weekend, particularly
At the
towards
end.
the end of the
Yeah.
semester. So the 3-day weekends are set up so you can do some independent travel. It is easier to do earlier than it is to do at the end. So when people plan big trips, at the end, it's just like here when you have a big studio deadline. You have the same kind of studio deadline there. So the 3-day weekends are easier to do earlier.
Yeah, we have 3 intense days of class, and then 1 day that's travel, and then 3 days with no class. And it creates a very different culture. It creates a very different pattern and rhythm to your life, and one which I think you'll be able to appreciate. There are people here who work in the United States who work on a 3-day work week, and they will tell you that it's much more advantageous. They have much less stress. But you have to understand that each of those days is intense, right? Because you're still doing the same amount of work, you're just doing a short amount of time. You also have 2 weeks up front where you don't have any class. After classes start, you have 2 weeks. So if you want to travel during that time, we'll be happy to talk about Rome or...
It's not like you can, I think, not from our program,
A travel
from
program.
other programs, well, that's different because we have less at the end, they have more. Other
No.
programs, some students are trying to use it as a hub for like continuous travel. It doesn't really work very well
We're not a
here
hub.
at all. It's first of all, it kind of takes a while to get to any airport, quite a while, like at least 4 hours to get to an airport. And so, I mean, I think successfully people plan a few 3-day weekends, or,
You
2
can,
or 3
you
3-day
can go to
weekends.
a train. You can take a train from Pesaro. You can take it anywhere. Unlike in the United States, if any of you have taken trains in the US, I have, they're terrible. It's a one-track system. You're constantly waiting for freight trains to pass through. The passenger trains in Italy are very, very reliable, especially the very fast ones. And they move you very, very quickly around the country. And it's amazing also how many smaller towns are accessible via trains as well. But from Pesaro, which is 45 minutes away by bus, it's on the coast, you're on that train line that takes you all the way down to Lecce, which is Nihil, which is one of my favorite places in Italy down there. Of course, the wine is exceptional too in Puglia. Right? It has the Nero d'Avola, and actually Primitivo is the wine of choice there. Nero d'Avola is in Sicily. But that train will also take you, with one change in Bologna, take you to Milano, right? Or up to Venice. Okay, so, I mean, you can move pretty quickly by train.
There's a.
You can also sketch on the train. Someone sketches a lot on trains.
No, it's not better than bus.
No.
There's a low-cost airport out of Bologna. It's just that it takes
It's funky to
almost
get
4
there.
hours to get there, between all the bus, train, bus, and then you're at the airport. So I think, I mean, this is where you should talk to some upper year students, but I think people planned a couple of 3-day weekends, or there's also a bit more time on the Easter break, although it's a crowded time to travel. But it's not as if you can plan to be off in some other city every single weekend, especially.
There are some nearby
There are
towns
some.
that are incredible too. Ravenna, remarkable. We'll be visiting.
Yeah, that's not, it's on the schedule.
But what's not on the schedule
Some people
is
said Ancona was quite interesting. We never
Ancona.
got down
Yeah,
there.
there's all kinds of stuff. But there's also really, really small towns, which are like little jewel boxes. And you find these you know, Santa Maria Nevada. These are remarkable little towns. Urbania, which is a sub-town of Urbino, obviously. They're wonderful little finds. There's always fascinating restaurants, there's always interesting people, there's always great coffee, there's always beautiful churches, there's always great public spaces, in part because the trains or the buses are delivering you into the city, into the downtown. In the US, you go over to the Greyhound station, the Greyhound bus station, and it's kind of,
Well, make a-
right? I mean, I'm nothing against these people, but you want to be there with a couple of friends. Italy is different. Everyone takes public transportation. Public transportation is essentially much cleaner and not looked down upon. Here, I was told by people as white as I am, that buses are for the dirty people. What that means are the people that put roofs on our houses, right? The people that take care of our children. That was offensive to me. That kind of class system doesn't exist there. I'm sitting on the train next to people who are university professors or who own an automobile dealership out of Pesaro or something. I mean, it's just very interesting people. I mean, the whole range, not just the people who can't afford cars. We have a class system based on the car that you buy, that you can afford. It's really disgusting, but you won't find that there. And so you can enjoy a lot of local bus transportation to a lot of these small towns that you can discover. I mean, they're there. There's a lot of them. You know,
So that's why
every 5 or 10 miles you find one.
Because I mean, if you have a goal that you're in Europe, I might not even be here again, I have to go to Paris, I have to go to London. That's why we
Don't.
have spring break, you might be able to squeeze in a couple cities there, but really, we're encouraging that staying in the springtime, because traveling in May is far more enjoyable than traveling in the wintertime. You have longer days, warm weather, you can ship back your winter clothes, so you just have a little bit of luggage and move around easier. That's the real advantage of this semester,
Yes.
Chinese semester.
Here at the downtown campus, we have access to the studios 24/7 in the night.
Yes.
What's the access
Yes.
like?
Yes.
Same thing,
Yes.
as long as you don't mind walking, because our housing is
Yes.
far, yeah.
It's an amazingly safe city. It's not like a big city. It's a little, as I say, it's a little shoebox.
It's kind of like a big college town.
It is, well, that, except for the buildings are also 500,000 years old. I mean,
What was your?
I think you'll find that you'll want to be in the studio just because they're so beautiful. You know,
Yes, I was just gonna ask when you guys wanted the itineraries for our flights, if you wanted.
before you go.
Okay.
Yeah, as soon as, what I do is I prepare the list, and I save them, and I send them to Mirko. And I send them to Mirko in the first or second week of January. Okay? At that point, there's always 3 or 4 people that I'm hounding. Every day I'm hounding them. Get me your itinerary. Because they have it, they just haven't sent it. So send it as soon as you get it. You can even have it sent directly to my email if you want to share your itinerary with someone, we'll go to email. Because I do have to, he's not accountable for anyone who doesn't know who's going to be there. And this is the way he knows you're going to be there. So you'll get there. Sorry, I don't have a room for you. Plus, I'm not going to, he'll know ahead of time. No, we've never had a problem. We've never, ever. In fact, the UTSA students have always been the best, period, of any study abroad students I've ever met anywhere in Italy. You know, except for maybe the French school children. Some of them are very, very good. They move so politely through the cities. Anyway. Benissimo. Grazie, grazie mille. Next week, I'll see you guys again. Thank you for the questions. Yes.